Welcome to Trial Lawyer Review. My name is Jason Lazarus, your host. This podcast is for and about trial lawyers. We'll tell the stories of trial lawyers who go to battle every day in courtrooms throughout the United States for injury victims. And this will be about their stories and about their practices. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Lazarus, your host for Trial Lawyer Review. Thank you for tuning in today for another episode. Trial Lawyer Review is brought to you by Synergy Settlement Services. In full disclosure, I'm not a professional podcaster. My day job is CEO of Synergy. Synergy allows trial lawyers to focus on what they do best by handling the difficult issues at settlement, like healthcare lien resolution, Medicare secondary payer compliance, government benefit preservation, and complex settlement planning. Joining me on Trial Lawyer Review today is Daniel Kramer, a super lawyer's rising star who specializes in representing families and individuals involved in catastrophic personal injury and wrongful death matters, and he practices with the firm he founded, Kramer Trial Lawyers in Los Angeles. And I'm going to go through his bio. It's pretty significant, so I'm going to read a little bit of it to you guys. He is a trial lawyer that's got an incredible track record. He's obtained numerous jury verdicts as lead counsel, all victories on behalf of his clients. Multiple verdicts have been featured in both the Daily Journal, Verdict Search, the Huffington Post, Fox 11 News. 5 verdicts were ranked as the top 50 verdicts in the state of California for 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 by topverdict.com. From 2013 to 2020, he's been consistently honored as a top attorney in personal injury and employment law by Pasadena Magazine, which reached out to thousands of lawyers from all over the Los Angeles and Pasadena areas to vote for the most esteemed and highly regarded attorneys in their chosen fields. Dan was distinguished for his exceptional service in his specialties. From 2018 to 2020, he's been selected as a Super Lawyer's Rising Star, which recognizes no more than the top 2.5% of attorneys in each state. In 2017 and 2018, he was a finalist for CALA's prestigious Rising Star Award, given to the top plaintiff attorney in Los Angeles under the age of 40. From 2012 to 2017, he was an adjunct professor at Southwestern Law School, where he taught law firm and civil litigation practice at the Graduate Legal Academic Program. He co-founded the Beverly Hills Bar Association's Personal Injury Section, which he currently chairs, and in 2016, he was elected the youngest member of the Southwestern Law School Board of Directors. He currently serves as the president-elect of the Los Angeles Trial Lawyers Charities, an incredible organization that we're going to talk a bit about, where he will serve as president or is serving as president.
Yeah, I need to update my bio.
Yeah, I guess the bio's a little needs a little update. And he was elected as one of the youngest members to the prestigious American Board of Trial Advocates, ABOTA, and in 2019 was elected by the entire membership to the LA ABOTA Executive Committee. He currently serves on the Board of Governors of the Consumer Attorneys of California. So a lot of stuff that he is involved in, a lot of good fodder for me to ask you some questions about. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. It's great. Love your company, by the way. We've been using you guys for about a year now, and you have really saved our clients a lot of money and saved us a lot of time. Really appreciate it, what you guys do.
I'm glad to hear that. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end because I've got
All right, yeah, hey, I don't want to jump the gun here.
Yeah. So I got to ask you at the outset, because in doing my research, as I always do when I interview guests, I came across some information about you being a Colorado Buffaloes fan, a Falcons fan, and a Braves fan, and heard you're trying to convince your son to join the bandwagon on those teams. Why?
I know, just so I can have a partner in my misery, I think is really what it comes down to. My wife's not quite there. She's really not interested in seeing the tears. My Buffs recently lost in the NCAA tournament. You're a Seminole fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys, I thought we had it, but you guys dominated us. It was sad. I almost got, my son's just turned 17 months, and he is so close to saying "Go Buffs." He says "Go Buff," but it almost says Buffs. But yeah, man. So I'm from Atlanta originally. So diehard Braves fan, watch every game. Falcons, Hawks, but Braves are my number one. And then went to Colorado, Boulder for college, and have been a diehard, miserable fan ever since. But I think we're turning the corner. I really do. We have two good coaches at the helm. I have my Buffs helmet in the background here. Still love it. Still love them.
So now, did you play sports at the collegiate level?
No, I mean, I played high school. I played both high school football and high school high school football and high school basketball, but wasn't quite quick enough to play in college, unfortunately.
So what made you go to Colorado? Just curious.
I went out there and saw the campus. My parents and I visited. It was beautiful in all aspects. The spring game had me going on. Just loved the big college atmosphere, the Flatirons there, great academic institution, and sort of just fell in love, honestly. It was just a great school, great college atmosphere.
So a question for you about your background as an athlete, prior to college. I'm curious because for me, I grew up a pretty serious athlete. I was a cyclist, and I found that the discipline from that sport has really served me well in my endeavors after I realized that I was not going to be Greg LeMond or Lance Armstrong, and decided to go to college and ultimately law school. So I'm curious about, if your athletics background from growing up, you think has helped you kind of get you to where you are today.
Oh, 1,000%. I tell my wife this all the time. We have a debate because my son, you can tell he's starting to get really into sports and whether he's going to play football or not. And I tell her all the time, football was one of the biggest reasons for me achieving any goals, really. Obviously, my parents, number one, but, football really taught me that you have to meet your assignments, hit every assignment on the field because it's 11 players on either offense or defense at a given time, and everyone is responsible for a certain task. The guard has to, ISO down, or the receiver has to block, or the tight end has to run a perfect pattern. But you're all working in concert together like a beautiful dance. And I think having everyone have their goals and achieve those little goals means a bigger picture goal that you all achieve together, which is winning the game. And I think 100% that just playing sports taught me so much of teamwork, of how to rely on people, and then how to also hold yourself accountable to others to all achieve a common goal. And it's huge, obviously, because, I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to let my teammates down, my family, my friends, and then in the law firm environment, it works just like that. I rely on my teammates, and then I have their back no matter what, if things go south. Like, with my staff and my team, I don't really, we're all family, right? We're all a team together. And so, we pick each other up. And I think those are all lessons that I learned just from playing sports.
Incredibly well said. And I use that every day with our team here at Synergy, just those ideas of that team mentality. I always talk about team synergy. It's that aspect of sports, I think, is just so applicable in the workplace. And I love how you just stated that. So tell me a little bit about your law firm and about your practice.
Yeah, so I'm a trial lawyer through and through. We do not take on a ton of cases because the goal is to try. I take on a case being prepared to try it and take it all away. I started out as a defense attorney, worked for a big insurance defense firm in Los Angeles, tried my first case 11 months out of law school, and just fell in love. Fell in love with being in the courtroom, being in front of a jury, representing a client, and then launched my former firm, Kramer Sheik, in 2012. And then right before COVID hit, I'd been planning on branching out, all amicable with my former partners. We're all great friends, but starting just a plaintiffs only law firm, because Kramer Holcomb Sheik had kind of been, my partners had been doing entertainment, business, litigation, and I just really wanted to laser focus on just plaintiff trial work. And COVID hits, and I have to move forward with launching this firm. So I launched Kramer Trial Lawyers, APC. We are, like I said, like the name says, we are trial lawyers. We will take any case to court, to trial, whether it's a slip and fall to a catastrophic injury car crash case, wrongful death cases, or plaintiff employment cases that people come to us, and we want to be the firm that if another attorney is in a bind and the insurance company's not settling, the corporation's not settling, and they needed to go to trial, they call us in. We want to be their Mariano Rivera, essentially. They call us in to come close a deal and bring the case home for a verdict. We have a variety of ways that we handle cases, either from the initial client, just something horrible thing just happened to a client. They come to us, we work it all the way up, or people call us literally days before trial starts, and we have a machine that's ready to run and ready to go. And my team's fantastic. I love them all to death. And, that's essentially us in a nutshell. We are trial lawyers through and through.
And I know, having been there enough, that SoCal is a pretty large area in terms of geography. Where are you typically trying your cases? Are you just in LA, or are you kind of throughout that area?
Yeah. Initially, it was just LA, but we've expanded. I mean, we are getting calls. I mean, we're going to be trying a case in north of the Bay Area later this year. We're getting called in Fresno, Sacramento, a lot in Orange County, and especially, obviously Los Angeles. The majority of our cases are in Los Angeles, but we are telling, anyone and everyone, we will go throughout the state and try any case, to be honest, because a jury is a jury, and we are very confident in our ability to try any case anywhere.
That's great for our listeners to know. So going back a little bit, I think that in doing my research, I heard that perhaps some family members were what inspired you to become an attorney in the first place. I'm curious about what led you to law school and what led you ultimately to want to be a trial lawyer in particular.
Well, so my goal was to be a professional athlete, not to be a cyclist like Greg LeMond, but to be a Chipper Jones, to be a professional baseball player, professional football player. I learned quickly I could not hit a curveball, so that definitely wasn't happening, and I was a slow white dude. So neither of those things were happening on the gridiron or on the baseball field. So once I started realizing that, but I was like, I love competition. And my grandfather, who was a paratrooper in World War II, he came from very, very humble beginnings in rural North Carolina, town called Hamlet, which is a train stop town, and did not have any money at all. Never planned on going to college. Got World War II hits. He signs up right away. He becomes a paratrooper in the 101st Airborne Division. And he would just sit around. We'd sit around the dinner table, and he would tell us these such animated stories. He was a great storyteller about how he would be paratrooping in behind enemy lines and blow up a big satellite that the Nazis were protecting, and just these amazing stories. He was such a patriot, and he just I just loved the way he told stories. But he'd always tell the story about how because of the GI Bill, he when he came back, he did not have any money to go to college. No one in his family had gone to college. But through the GI Bill, he was able to go to college and law school at Wake Forest. In like 4 years total, I think, all of them. And he just loved being a trial lawyer in Durham, North Carolina. So like his war stories, would always turn into courtroom stories. So it would just be, and again, he would tell them with the same animation, just like you really could feel like you were there. And, he did it for all the right reasons. He was an extremely ethical person and never believed in cutting corners, and believed in using the law for the right tool in the right way to help people, help his client, and never doing anything that would harm anyone else, just always do it the right way. Fight hard, but do it the right way. And so he kind of laid that groundwork for me. And, again, once I realized I was not going to go anywhere in sport, I mean, I was a decent high school player, but it was never going to be anything more than that. But this was the avenue where you could have competition, you could fight hard, and it's just extremely exciting. So with that, I just kind of always knew from the time I think I was 10, 11 years old, sitting around the dinner table with my grandfather, and he would tell me those stories. I just knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and thank God I'm here.
We have a pretty large framed American flag in our main conference room, and one of our clients, he had developed a charity to help people who lost family members in service, and the flag actually flew in combat, and was, just touched my heart what he was doing with those that group of people, because people that choose to go into the military, especially, and I know, some didn't have a choice back then, but still the bravery of going into combat, it's incredible to hear those stories of people who came back from that and were incredibly successful after enduring what was probably pretty hellish. I'm sure that there were some things he saw in that probably were pretty tough, but it's great to hear that ultimately it helped serve his family well in providing that role model for you and your future success.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I have his flag. It's off camera, but I have his flag, his triangle flag right here, right behind me. Have it at all times. I actually keep a letter. He wrote me a letter where I asked who his favorite baseball players are, and because I was expecting him to say, this is in the 90s, all these big famous baseball players, but he listed all of his different kids. He had 4 kids, and just talked about how his son Clint was a great second baseman, and just all these reasons. And I keep that letter. Actually, it was really it's a great letter. It's on his legal letterhead. Every time I try a case, I put it in my breast pocket. Every single trial, I just keep it there. It's pretty torn up now, but I can't go to trial without it. Keep them close.
Cool. That's a cool little tidbit. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm wondering, is there an important or influential case that you've handled, either to you or you think to the larger system, and why so?
Yeah, I mean, so I was a defense attorney. Had tried a bunch of cases, got a lot of great. I was very fortunate that my bosses gave me a lot of great experience early on the defense side. But coming over to the plaintiff side, my first real big trial was in 2016. It was a case against LAX. So the city of Los Angeles owns LAX, and basically all these big firms, some of the big firms out here, passed on the case. I mean, it was a slip and fall. So basically what we had a photograph of just coffee in the women's restroom. So it was just a picture of just a Starbucks cup on the ground, coffee spilled everywhere. My client had been flying in from Missouri, real small town, Waverly, Missouri, had flown in just to visit her family, walked in the restroom, didn't see the coffee, slips, lands on her back essentially, and injures her spine. Has a lot of trouble walking, goes home, pain does not go away, eventually has to have a back surgery, some complications from that, has to have another surgery. But ultimately she just had pain the rest of her life that was going to be in her back. So, that's the case. A lot of firms are just like, okay, whatever. Like, it's a tough case against LAX. How are you going to prove any liability here? We didn't have the person who spilled the coffee. They were nowhere to be found, obviously. And that's all we had. So I was like, you know what? This is early in our firm. I was I just finished Trial Lawyers College, had done Trojan Horse, had done a lot of these great seminars to learn, how to really try a good plaintiff's case. And I was like, let's just take this one. The city wasn't offering anything. But once we started digging, we started to find that the city just had real no. So basically what it was is that the tile that they put into the restrooms, it is supposed to be slip resistant, meaning if water gets on it, your foot's just going to stop. That's how it should be. That's how it is at gyms or around pools. And here we had experts go out and test the tile, and it was like extremely slippery, like shiny wall tile would be. It was just the total wrong tile to be in a restroom, a place that's going to get wet. So once we found that out, we're like, well, hey, maybe there's a case here against the city who just designed a dangerous condition, meaning that they should have had slip resistant tile. They had slippery tile. And so we started digging there, and we just came to find that, I mean, just the more we dug and took deposition after deposition, that the city just has no checks and balances for safety at all. I mean, in terms of LAX, they didn't have any safety systems in place where to make sure that they're putting the right safe flooring in and anywhere in the airport. And they had lost all of the documents that showed when the construction was or who made the decisions. It was just shocking how careless they were when it came to safety of guests at the airport. Really, and they didn't care. They didn't even, they didn't try to settle. They offered a zero the whole time. So fast forward to trial, we try it in Santa Monica. It's usually a very conservative jurisdiction for LA, surprisingly, in terms of awarding money. But we had a really smart jury. We had a bunch of CEOs. We had people that work for SpaceX, professors. I mean, it's a really highly educated area. So you have a highly educated jury. And I just thought they would get the science. They'd understand the science. They'd be upset that LAX cut such corners, despite the science being on our side. And they just seemed so careless about it. And ultimately, the jury came back with 100% liability on LAX and gave us $2.2 million for her injuries. And she was a wonderful client. So, it really changed her life because she would flip homes and couldn't do that anymore. And she's from a small town and just a really sweet lady, a widow. And, I spent a ton of time with her because I try to spend as much time as I can with my clients leading up to trial. And we were just able to expose LAX for what they were. And they were just careless and cut a lot of corners. And, actually they since, because of that verdict, they changed all the restroom flooring so that people would not be falling. And, I think it truly did make a difference, made the world safer, or at least the airport safer, because of this verdict. So, I mean, that's really ultimately why we do what we do. But, initially you tell people, this is slip and fall in an LAX restroom. You get that, you see the photos, you're like, this is no case at all. But, when you keep fighting and you find like a little string of, and then you pull and you pull and pull, and ultimately you make a case and you take it to trial, you end up changing things. And so it was that case obviously changed things for me too.
That's an incredible result, one, for that client, but it's what people don't understand, I think, about trial lawyers, and frustrates me sometimes when I hear things that are negative. The idea that, we have a profession that's dedicated to making the world a safer place, which is exactly what you do. It's making sure that corporations or government doesn't put profits ahead of people. And what you did changed the safety of that particular airport, and that it's a pretty incredible thing to be able to do for your profession. Not only help that client, but also, as you said, help make the world a bit of a safer place ultimately.
Well, I mean, that's the whole purpose behind tort law, right? I mean, it really is. If you think like it's not to punish, but it is to send a message and to change things. And I'm a big believer in the Seventh Amendment, the right to trial by jury, civil cases. And I think it is responsible for so much of the safety regulations we have in this country is not because the legislature is out there, checking off every box to make everything safe. They're not, because unfortunately so much of their funding comes from big corporations who do everything they can to avoid liability. And so, that's why you see so many legislatures throughout the country. Even here in liberal California, we still have a cap on medical malpractice damages of $250,000, which has been the same amount since the 70s because, the medical lobby and the doctor lobby, they have set that cap. But it's not it's not justified. You're basically having a few legislatures and a few politicians decide how much a life is worth based on their cap. And I know in Texas, Florida, a lot like where you are, in a lot of places. And we just have to keep fighting that movement because our founding fathers made it a very strict decision with the Seventh Amendment that these decisions on the value of human life and human loss need to be in the hands of 12 citizens from all across the spectrum. And that's why we have the jury system. It shouldn't be up to a single politician or multiple politicians who are bought by a small interest group. It really should be up to juries to decide this. And I truly believe, I think that like trial lawyers are the last line of defense for so much. We hold the powerful accountable, whether it's, it's politicians committing crimes or corporations cutting corners and harming people and killing people. Like, we are the last line of defense because politicians aren't going to protect us necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was reading your bio, I saw that in the past you were an adjunct professor. Why was it important to you to be a teacher of soon-to-be lawyers?
So I got so much from other older attorneys who have been practicing for a long time. They would give without asking for anything in return, and it wasn't like they were giving just to like get cases. And I think I want to pay that forward first off, and second off, I think I want to help our profession, and I think so much. A lot of times law school helps you. The old saying, helps you think like a lawyer, but doesn't help you actually practice law. And I think that's more and more true. And I think thankfully law schools are starting to kind of flip that, and they're really, kind of bringing back almost an apprentice model where you're getting real practical skills of what it's like to be a lawyer and be in the courtroom and, depose a witness, handle a judge's vigorous questioning of your motion. So I thought, me as a practicing younger attorney who had been in the trenches, who had been through it, I thought, it was important to express that to students, especially at Southwestern. That's my law school. I have a lot of pride there, and I want to help those students succeed as soon as they get out of law school. So that program was really teaching practical skills in civil litigation so that when they get out, they're not just in the academic philosophical mindset. They have practical skills. So they're ready to take a motion or a deposition.
Yeah, that's great, because that is really needed and necessary. I really appreciate it. I had trial practice in law school and was taught by the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. I was lucky because I was in the Capitol, in Tallahassee, where I went to law school, and we had that. But how cool is that to, have the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court be your professor for trial practice? But it was great because it was more practical. It was someone that had, sees lawyers in front of him every day, had been a judge for a long time. So, but it's cool that you were able to give back in that way to your law school.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. I got to tell you, you were reading the top verdicts. Every attorney's going to have a big hole in 2020 of, no one's got any top verdicts in 2020 for sure. So, but what I think, and especially on the plaintiff side, is I know all of my colleagues, we have been spending so much time this past year truly learning. Like, I have not learned, I've learned more in 2020 than I ever did in law school, than I ever did going to any seminars, because literally, thanks to things like TBI Med Legal and Dan Ambrose and Case Analysis and all these different webinars that people are doing, it's constant learning. And so many trial lawyers have stepped up to the plate and are offering so much knowledge and information and breaking down their trials so that, when we come out of this and trials are starting, I feel like the plaintiff's bar is just going to take off, and you're going to see verdicts like we've never seen before, because so much time is spent learning. And I personally put on a lot of webinars with various groups because, teaching plaintiff lawyers how to do it and the skills of the trade and how it's an art is so important right now. And I'm just so thankful, because I've been a student and a teacher this last year. And I'm absolutely loving it. I can't wait to get back in the courtroom and try some of these new things out.
It's actually a great segue into what I was going to ask you about next, which is your involvement in leadership with different trial organizations in the state. But that's one of the real beautiful things that I see about the plaintiff personal injury bar is a willingness to always help out their fellow trial lawyers, whether it's on a listserv or, one of the guests on the podcast was Rich Newsom, who founded Trial School, which, is educating lawyers on, different, techniques to improve their trial skills, like Trial Lawyers College and Trojan Horse and all these great groups of lawyers who are sharing their secrets and helping, the rest of the practice and elevate it. But I'm curious, you've been a leader in California. You're one of the founders, as I said in your bio, the Beverly Hills Bar Association PI section. What's driven you in that regard? Why are you involved in all of that?
Yeah, my wife asks me that all the time when I'm like have 5 board meetings stacked up. But
Yeah.
I honestly I can't get enough of it. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love the camaraderie of it. I love meeting new people, interacting with other trial lawyers, but then even other lawyers outside of our practice area. I think the more you interact with them, they start to understand more of the PI practice, which I think is good. They understand where we're coming from on things. I mean, I think I just love seeing an organization, seeing how we can help take it to the next level. And a lot of these, like especially CAOC, is very involved with the legislature. Over the last month, I've had probably 15 Zoom meetings with different state senators and assembly people trying to get the courts back open. And they're very receptive to it. They're very receptive to our causes. And I think these organizations really just give us that access so that we can actually, not just, we're trying cases, we put our head down there, but we're actually changing the law and changing the way things are done in Sacramento. And I know AAJ is doing it in Washington, and everyone in their own state TLAs are doing that. But it's so rewarding. I mean, to be able to do that and help our fellow trial lawyers, just make it easier for them from a legislative standpoint, and then influencing the politicians from a political standpoint to get the courts open again, which is what we need for our clients. So I love that aspect of it. Just love giving back, love meeting new people. I mean, it's all kind of there's a variety of reasons why I do it, but it's very rewarding.
I'm curious, if there's something you could share with listeners about just what your involvement with these different organizations has meant to you and why those organizations are so important. I mean, I think you touched on some of that with the legislative side of things and making sure that there's a voice, but just curious if there's other things for you that you've had from, say, being a part of a BOTA. I know, CAOC and Beverly Hill Bar Association and the PI section.
Yeah, I mean, I think, CALA, for example, the Consumer Attorneys Association of Los Angeles, is the biggest plaintiff bar in the country, I think. I started out, this is how I learned. I mean, it's a great educational organization. It's where I really learned how to try a plaintiff's case. I did their, CALA PTA, which is essentially for younger lawyers. You go through a whole 2 months with all the top trial lawyers in Los Angeles, and you learn. And so I was taught so much, so I want to now give back and teach the younger attorneys. That's for CALA, for example. For a BOTA, it's a great way to the whole thing about a BOTA is professional courtesies and working with each other. So it's a great way for us for plaintiffs lawyers and defense lawyers to come together, and judges as well. And we work. It's all about ethics and all about how to work together professionally, courteously. And so with that, I mean, that organization does that. CAOC, I already talked about, you deal with the legislature. So you really change the laws and change how our clients are actually affected. Beverly Hills Bar you're dealing with attorneys from all different practice areas. So it's good to be exposed to family lawyers for, not just to get business, but to learn what different practice areas are doing and to be able to have your hand on the pulse there. Right now, number one in my heart is LATLC. I'm sure we'll be talking more about that, but there's always a charity component to most of these organizations. So I'm a big believer in getting involved. I think you're not only helping the profession, you're helping your clients. And it's a win-win all around, because you meet new attorneys who then you can have a good referral relationship with. So to me, we put in so much. I put in so many hours to give back to these organizations, really not expecting anything in return, because that's not why I do it. But it does. I mean, at the end of the day, it always does. It does pay off. But if you're going into it for the right reasons, it will.
Yeah,
I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. As a lawyer, I'm involved with the Florida Justice Association, a member of the AAJ, and I participate on their listservs trying to help lawyers when they're dealing with some of the issues that are in my area of expertise. So I think, the idea is that, most plaintiff practices are, average 2 to 3 lawyers. You're not, in mega firms, generally speaking. There are a few of them out there, but, so basically the rest of the, country, if it's AAJ or your state TLA becomes, your law partners. They're helping you with some of the issues that perhaps you've not dealt with, or they've got something that they can help you with. And that's what I think is so cool to see about this particular area of the profession, is that people are always willing to do that. And, giving back is really a big component, which I'm just a really big believer in. So, but we'll talk about LATLC next. I'm curious though, because I've heard a lot of things about Spence's Trial Lawyer College, what your experience was and what made you go in the first place.
Man, you may get me in some trouble, but I'll give you brutal honesty. I mean, so initially, I was at first I saw it and I was like, this is great. I mean, this is exactly what it's Trial Lawyers College. I want to be a great trial lawyer, and had heard so many great people who graduated from it. At first, my initial reaction when I went was it's a little, obviously it was heavy on the non-lawyer side of the psychodrama, and I mean I don't know how much you know about it, but it's yeah. So it was different, but I'll be honest. I mean, a lot of the techniques it was outside of my comfort zone. Let me just say that it wasn't something that I'd ever dealt with or been a part of, but that's a good thing. It's good to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, you're in Wyoming, you're outside of Du Bois, Wyoming. No internet, no cell phone, sharing a room, and very small barn. And so the idea is to get out of your comfort zone, and I'm extremely thankful for that, because it really did help me connect with my clients better and tell a better story of my clients. So yeah, look, initially I was like, what is all this psychodrama stuff? I did not understand it, did not expect it, but at the end of the day, it definitely made me a better trial lawyer, certainly. I've taken so many of the skills I learned from there to really help connect with my clients, putting the client's story number one in any case. And I've met some great people, some amazing trial lawyers, some lifelong friends through it. But with anything, you take the good stuff out of it and you apply it to your practice. Other stuff may not work for you or may not apply to you, and it's just like a book, right? I mean, you take a few good nuggets from any kind of leadership book or nonfiction book that you're reading to improve yourself, and the rest may be a little maybe not right for you, but you gain something from it. And I think all these conferences I go to, or long-term seminars I go to, I try to take a little bit from and make it work for me.
I'm curious. That leads me to a question that I've talked to most of the guests that have appeared on the podcast about, which is this idea of empathy. Because with anybody that joins our team, I always emphasize the importance of our mission, who we serve, why it's so important. The people that we serve have been through something truly, horrific usually, or life altering. And I talk about the accident I was involved in and give them that perspective, just because it just shows how easily, one moment you're fine, and the next moment, you're in the ICU. And I'm curious for you, because you mentioned this when you were just talking about the Trial Lawyer College, is how do you connect empathetically with what your client's been through, and then adequately convey that to the jury so the jury understands it and can feel it?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to learn how to do as a trial lawyer. Absolutely. I mean, so what I try to do is you really try to spend as much time as you can with a client. Like, I'm a big believer in meeting with them in both work environments, like in your conference room, but also, outside of work environments, either at their home, your home, going out to dinner together, just doing anything together that's, that people, you would do with a friend. And I think, but I think the key is to really understand, what is your client's, motivation to do anything. And you really have to go back to almost the start. I always like to go back to the client's childhood, really understand what was their childhood like, what was it like, what was the relationship with their parents like, their siblings, what kind of role did they have to take on, either as a son or a daughter. And then you build up, you work from there. And I always start, you start at the beginning to really get to know the person. What was high school like? What was college like? And then, their job life, their marriage life, what's their life like as a parent or not having kids. Because I think that in finding out that background, you find out stories that have affected them because of the crash. For example, I had a big case where my client fell in a trench. He was an electrician. He had a very checkered past, was in a gang, tatted up, was big into drugs and all that. So, you hear that, and as plaintiff attorneys, we're like, oh, he's not going to come across well in front of a jury at all. And but by spending so much time with him, I started finding these stories about how his dad went to prison when he was young. He basically had to be the dad from the time he was, 8 years old, of his like 4 younger siblings. His mom was kind of in and out too. So he took on that responsibility. It was very hard for him. And he had to earn money. So that's why he sold drugs. And then, he got into drugs, but he stopped doing that in his 20s. And he was doing odd jobs, but really found a love for being an electrician. And so, fast forward, he's an electrician. He's walking through a construction site. There's an open trench that the general contractor and the subcontractor didn't cover or barricade. He falls in, fractures his ribs, ruptures his spleen. But he's like out of work for almost a year because of that. But he had just become a union electrician. And so that really set him back to a very bad place, made him depressed. Like, him and his wife almost got a divorce over it. So you're finding like all these things that were, a repercussion of the injury, of, him and his wife, going to a really dark place, almost getting divorced, all this stuff, and him trying to come out of it and getting back to being an electrician again. But he had to almost go back to the start. He had worked so hard to become a union electrician, but he had to almost go back to the start. And all those stories about how this fall truly set him back so far and took him to a dark place and reminded him of that dark place he used to be in his, late teens, early 20s, just thinking that he's going to go back there. So developing that story, like if I just read his depo, because the case was referred to us by an attorney who didn't try cases, and, they don't go into that in the depo. I didn't know any of that. And, if I just sat there and read stacks of depos after depos, or just reviewed medical records, put them up on the stand, and then you just kind of go matter of fact, and then the defense crosses the hell out of him for, that really these dark places he was going because of the drugs or whatever they're going to try to come up with. But if I had not spent the time of getting to know this human being and what made this human being what he was because of his past, and why it was so important that he didn't want to go back there. That's why he worked so hard to get back to being an electrician. And then when he's an electrician now and back to work, he works through the pain because he, as a kid, had to take on that role of fighting through everything to protect his younger siblings. Now he's fighting through the pain to be an electrician. So when the defense comes in and says, oh, look, he's totally fine, he's climbing ladders, he's crawling, he doesn't deserve any future care or any future non-economic damages for future pain and suffering, it's like, well, this dude is working his ass off because he will never go back to that dark place he was before, and this injury is not going to define him. Jurors want to root for a hero. And so that's the story we turned it into. But it was because, we spent, 50, 60 hours together just over the 3 weeks leading up to trial. And I love him like a brother. And we just had that bond. And his family, his kids, we all know me. And, but I think that's the key, right? I mean, I think that's the difference. And I think a lot of that I learned from Trial Lawyers College and, various places. It's things you're not taught in law school at all. And it's things that we just, as trial lawyers, I think it's so important that we learn those stories, because you can then flip any defense that comes up, like, my guy looks fine. Sure, he does look fine, but he's fighting through pain because, he has nerve damage on his side the rest of his life. And you flip that, he's back to work and everything looks fine now on the defense, because you find out, you dig deep, you really get into their emotional state before and after. And I think on that case, we got a $3 million verdict, and he literally had 5 doctor's visits and 3 broken ribs, but he just had nerve damage. And they just, we just got the jury to fall in love with him and pissed at the defense because of that. So, yeah, I don't know. A long-winded answer, but I'm a big believer in it, and really getting the client's story.
That's great. I mean, that's one of the things that we do each month is we highlight a client's story so that everybody here understands what people have been through by the time they wind up needing Synergy's help, and that helps reinforce the mission, having this empathy, which is one of our core corporate values. And for each other, as we go through our days, but then also, the clients that we serve. So to me, exactly what you've said is what's so important, with what we do too, is recognizing people's stories and, making sure that we understand the privilege we have to help them. It's such an important thing. So.
No, it is.
So,
we're their last resort, really. It's a huge responsibility, but as I know you guys do, and we do, we take it very, very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tragic how many times you see cases that are settled for policy limits, when the policy limits, like the driver that hit me at $10,000 in coverage, my medical bills were $380,000 plus, I mean, and that's not unusual, to see that. And it's just so hard to see when that's the case, see what the end result is for the client. But, at the end, we have to do what we can to help people in those situations to maximize their recovery, because every single penny becomes incredibly important when you've just got a small policy that's the only means of compensating somebody for what could be a really significant injury, or it could be a wrongful death situation. It's just unfortunate that that's the reality for some clients, but the idea that you guys go to battle and get that kind of result that is going to make sure that that person's taken care of is exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing harder, and that's why it's so great what you guys do, because there's nothing harder than telling a client who is seriously catastrophically injured, and you're just like, there's a $50,000 policy, and then the hospital or Medicare or Medi-Cal, they're just like, they want to take all of it, and it's like they don't understand it. They're like, I've been paying into this, and now I'm going to get zero. So basically, this whole case is just to get the lawyer and the medical provider money. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's not the way it should be at all. I mean, that's not fair. That's not justice. It's extremely hard to have those conversations with clients.
Yeah, for sure. So we said that we would talk about LA Trial Lawyer Charities. So TLC, what is it? Why are you involved with it?
Yeah, sure. So LATLC is, it's actually, I think it spawned from, in David Ball's Damages 3, he has a section in the appendix where he talks about how we want to change the perception of trial lawyers, but trial lawyers need to look in the mirror and think, well, why do jurors think we're greedy ambulance chasers? And he's like, when you go to your website, and look, we're all guilty of it, it just shows, $10 million verdict, $5 million verdict, just like the verdict, you just put these dollar signs on, catastrophic injury, $10 million, and there's a smiling attorney. It's like, well, you really need to have, what you should have on your website is pictures of you helping people, like in a genuine way. Don't have it be a fake photo, like a photo shoot or a photo op, Like show that you care. You actually care about the community, and you're out there fighting for clients, and that you really are a consumer advocate. And so, Bruce Trainey, who's one of our founders back in 2006, took that to heart, as did, a handful of other prominent trial lawyers in Los Angeles. And, they knew that trial lawyers do have big hearts, and there's a huge misconception about us in the public. And a lot of that is because of a PR campaign done by the insurance industry, big corporations, to make us look like horrible, greedy ambulance chasers who make money off people's ailments and the horrors people have to go through. When we all know that the trial lawyer, they care. Some of the greatest people with the biggest hearts I've ever met is the plaintiff's side, the plaintiff's bar. They really do care about people, and they put a lot of their own time and money on the table without asking really for anything in return, unless we get a verdict. And I think that's admirable. We're taking a big risk. The insurance side is, their attorneys are not taking any risk at all. And so, I think it's important that we, so that, they started this charity to give back to those in need in Los Angeles, whether it's, children with disabilities, children who aren't as privileged and financially, battered women, the homeless. And so they just started raising money. And it was set up initially as a pass-through charity, where we have our partner charities, a group of partner charities that we give a lot of money to. We raise money, give back. And it really started, we were giving away about, $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, up until about 2014, when Min Nguyen became president. We really ramped up. We got the plaintiffs' attorneys really behind us in Los Angeles. And to date, we've given away almost $5 million to the community, to those in need. It's just really a great organization. And so I became involved about 7 years ago, because I just love what they did. And I wanted to find an avenue where I can volunteer my time, go feed the homeless, go paint houses, various opportunities, did that, and then started raising money. And so I was elected secretary 5 years ago, and there's a ladder, and became president this year. And last year was obviously very, very tough for everyone. Alyssa Shablowski was our president. We were able to still, despite COVID, give away almost $500,000, which is unheard of for most charities. Really made a difference. And so we're just taking on, this year our goal is to start there, and then give away even more to the community. We have various fundraisers throughout the year that we do, and we also do a lot of direct giving. So we do, it's called the Power of the Shower. In Venice, California, we set up basically take down a whole city block, and we bring in showers and doctors and clothes for the homeless in the area. They can come in and just start a fresh start. We do a Comfort and Joy event around the holidays, where we work with Newton Police Department, again, shut down a whole city block, and kids who would not get any toys for Christmas, for example, or any food or ham or turkey, we give away toys, and we have a whole carnival atmosphere, and trial lawyers donate their time and money for that. So look, we're with COVID hopefully ending soon, we're looking to really ramp up. We've already raised, this year alone, we've almost raised $500,000 already, and we're only in March, because people are just so eager to, I think there's a lot of pent up, people do want to give back. They want to sponsor, they want to donate. We're putting on our very big summer soiree. Hopefully we're able to do it, but we're going to integrate a big event party with all of our partner charities. We're going to be involved with a big gala that we're going to do in downtown Los Angeles on August 14th, where we hope to raise, almost $800,000 for that event alone. So, we got a lot going on, but I think the future is bright. One of my biggest things is I want to expand the Trial Lawyers Charities to other regions. And we're about to launch Orange County Trial Lawyers Charities. Michelle West is heading that up down in Orange County, and there's a lot of fabulous trial lawyers who are ready to take over down there. And we want this to spread like wildfire. As soon as my presidency's done, I'm gonna spearhead the whole expansion effort. We want to go to the Bay Area next, and then who knows where. I think we can take this national, because I think there is such, there's a lot of trial lawyers out there. We've been reached out by people in Philadelphia, Atlanta, Florida, who want to give back to their community. They just don't have the avenue to do it. And so we have the playbook. We've been through it. We've been doing it for 15 years. It's our 15th anniversary. And I think it's time to start expanding and really showing the world that trial lawyers are good people who give back. And, I think this really helps change the minds and hearts of jurors and voters, that we are good people. When we come in a courtroom, we're not the bad guy. We are actually the good guy doing the good thing, So, really excited about it. I love it. Los Angeles Trial Lawyers Charity. Our website's www.latlc.org. Take a look. It's really a great organization. Very proud of it.
Yeah, it's an incredible organization, and it's a beautiful thing that you're doing personally to give back. And the organization, I've seen what they're doing, and it's really cool, and would love to be involved in bringing that to Florida. So
yeah, you guys have been great supporters of ours. Synergy has been great. I mean, I really appreciate you guys giving back, helping out. Your money has been going to help a lot of people, so we appreciate it.
Well, there's definitely, that philosophy of giving back is something that I really emphasize with our team, because it's something that is part of our corporate culture and is important to me personally. And, thankfully, everybody here embraces that. So thank you for doing what you do, because that really it makes a difference. It's just one person at a time, and that's just what we need as a society is a little more of that.
More so now than ever, man. I mean, really,
Yeah.
truly.
So, a couple more questions. Curious, and this pertains to really more the business side of the practice of law. Being a younger attorney, seeing what's going on in technology, and maybe it's not limited to that, but are there things that you think are going to change the personal injury law practice forever? Maybe stuff that's come out of COVID. Seems like there's a lot of things that are going to change as a result of both technology and what society's been through, with COVID. But just curious if there are things that you think that are on the horizon.
Well, I think there's a few things. One out of, I think the things we're learning out of COVID is that, we can do a lot less traveling. As much as I miss, being in person with people and to go traveling actually, I don't miss sitting in the 405 traffic, going down to Orange County. I don't miss that at all, taking a deposition. So take that back. But, I mean, a lot more depositions are going to be done over Zoom, clearly. I think mediations, it's great. I mean, it's so much easier for clients, especially when you have a severely injured client who can't travel to an office. They can just be on Zoom, and they can be not under the pressure of being in an uncomfortable office space, sitting around staring at each other. You can do other things. So I think with all of that, like depositions and mediations is going to be great. I do not want there to ever be Zoom jury trials. I think that would be a horrible thing. And ABOTA is trying to fight against that. I know CALA and CAOC and so many organizations are fighting that hard, even though, I know the judges have a lot of backlog and they have a lot to deal with, but I think that would be disastrous. I think jurors wouldn't pay attention. I don't think you can pick fair jurors. They'll be looking things up as you're on the screen, and I just don't think you have a captive audience. I don't think you're going to get good results either way if there's Zoom jury trials. So I hope that doesn't come back. In terms of, what the future of the profession, there's a huge concern in California right now, and I think it's happening across the country, is, a big push for non-attorney ownership of law firms or paraprofessionals taking over, or not taking over, but being allowed to practice law. And, we're very concerned about that, because I think ultimately what that will lead to is a denigration of the services of the services that clients need. And you're going to have, it could be a big tech takeover, like an Google Law or Amazon Law, where, you're having people who didn't pass the bar and who didn't go through law school and who are not trained to be an attorney and advocate for a client, be able to do this stuff. And the clients initially think they're going to get a cheaper deal, but it's not. I mean, it's going to ultimately harm them. I mean, it'd be like saying it's okay for someone who didn't go to med school to do surgery. And I just think, it's really ultimately gonna lower the practice of law. I think it's going to harm the practice of law, and I think we all need to be very cognizant of it. and we need to watch out for it and make sure that the legislatures and all of our respective states protect. You need to have a license to practice law, and I think if you have non-lawyers owning law firms or being part of the ownership, which means ultimately they'll just take over the law firm. If you have these big corporations, it's going to be all about the bottom line, which look, like, I'm a businessman. I mean, there's business with men and women. I mean, we're in a business of law, and of course we want to make a profit and all that. But if it just becomes too corporate of a takeover, I think clients are going to be the ones left in the dust. And I think that I'm concerned about that. I know many attorneys are concerned about that, and we are fighting that in Sacramento right now. So I think that's could be where things are heading just from a professional perspective. I mean, I can go on and on about it, but yeah, I mean, generally I think that's where things are headed.
I'm curious, you talked just briefly about the business aspect of the practice of law. What, in your opinion, is the most important thing for lawyers to understand about operating a law firm? I mean, you've got your own practice. I'm sure you've, with your previous partners, what to you is really the most important thing when you're dealing with managing a law firm?
Well, I mean, first off, you're starting out a law firm, keep it lean as long as you can. Don't. I mean, it goes with any business, but in law, because but you are the commodity, so it's different than other areas, because you are the product, meaning that you have to be out there handling cases, bringing in cases. You're wearing all the hats, so I think it's important. I think you should try to do your own books, understand your own finances initially, which I did. I handled our own books, like literally every single invoice, everything that came in for the first 6 to 9 months. I actually really enjoyed it, but I think it's important. It's super important that I did that. I know it's crazy, but I think it's important that I did that. So now that when I obviously have a bookkeeper, accountants that handle all that now, but you got to make sure you're checking everything to make sure it's done right. And I can quickly analyze it and make sure, because as we're seeing right now with a very prominent attorney from Los Angeles who is probably going to go to jail, as he should, but, messing with the client's money, messing with the client trust account can get you in a lot of trouble, even if it's an quote innocent mistake. But you gotta be super careful. Make sure that your client trust account is managed the way the law requires, because you never mess with the client's money ever. But you can make an accounting mistake, or money's not transferred in the right way. And so I think knowing that is important, because you got to comply with the laws. Watch your overhead, as long as you can. Don't overhire too early. Also, devote time to marketing. You got to. I mean, you could be the best attorney in the world. You could be the best, orator, the best writer, but if you can't bring in the business, no one's going to know it. So you got to understand marketing, and there's ways to market, without spending, competing with these big marketing PI firms, for example. I mean, you could do a lot on social media. You go to a lot of speaking events. You join organizations. You join organizations of other attorneys who don't practice in your area, so then they can know you as the PI attorney or the employment attorney, and refer you cases. So just don't, if you're starting your own business, don't expect just to be practicing law, because you got to set aside like 50% of your time, somewhere in that range, at least initially, to marketing, bringing in the business. So I mean, that's a few things, and then obviously once you have staff and all that, it changes the whole game. But yeah.
Great business advice. I think that a lot of what you said is applicable no matter what you do. So thank you for sharing that. Is there one tip that you would give to other trial lawyers as part of your secret to success in your practice of personal injury law?
Yeah, I mean, don't back down from the fight. So when you're sitting in a deposition, maybe you're a younger attorney and the defense attorney is objecting, just stay focused on the goal. Just keep looking forward, keep marching forward. Don't let them throw you off. You sign up this case for a reason. You believe in this client for a reason. you've decided that, hey, I'm going to take this on and I'm willing to fight this case all the way. So don't lose sight of that goal. No matter how much they are telling you your case is crap, your client is a liar, blah, 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 blah. Just keep fighting, keep working, power through it. And you have no many times how many times, or you no idea how many times I've been told I'm going to get defense, my case is crap, and then all of a sudden I hit them with a 7-figure verdict, or even $100,000 verdict, or a $20,000 verdict. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you kept fighting, and you kept fighting to the end, all the way. Just don't back down, because look, I mean, we all think these great trial lawyers, Brian Panish, Gary Dordick, all these, Keith Minnick, and these are great trial lawyers. These are guys that I learned from, and many men and women, Lisa Blue, so many great trial lawyers that I learned from. But the thing is, look, it's not rocket science. Like, you can do it. Just prepare. And everyone has a different style. You don't have to be, as charming and funny as Gary Dordick. You can still get great results. If you believe in your client, you prepare harder than the other side does, prepare harder than you ever have, and you can win. And I think that it's so easy for younger lawyers or any lawyers to get discouraged. It's intimidating. Trial's a scary thing. It's still scary. I still get scared going in there. It's just that you get the nerves, you get that pit in your stomach, your hands start sweating as soon as like the judge calls the case and swears in the first panel, and you're like, oh man, I'm doing this. But you can do it. Like, anyone can do it. As long as you work hard, you believe in your client, you do it for the right reasons, you do it the right way. Don't let the defense attorneys talk you off your game, because that's all they're trying to do. But keep your head down and focus. So that's my long-winded advice there.
All right, so last question, and I'm going to come back to where you started, where you're talking about how synergy helps you. I'm curious, if you've seen any trends of late in dealing with issues that come up when you settle the case. We call it the case after the case, whether it's liens or Medicare, Medi-Cal, or, the financial piece. What is it that you find challenging, and, how is that impacting your practice?
Well, I can't stand. I like how you said that, the case after the case. I mean, that is like, you've worked so hard. Your client agrees to the settlement. Everyone's happy, and then like you're hit with Medicare. You can't get a hold of them. It's like 120 days. I mean, it is like there's nothing that it takes the wind out of your sails more than the having to deal with that stuff. I find it absolutely miserable, and it's frustrating, and I feel like the insurance companies and the medical providers they're getting less and less willing to budge, and so that's why I'm just very, very thankful for companies like yours that can handle all that, because the cost, I mean, you guys save more for the client than what you guys cost. And it just really, I mean, we shouldn't be doing it. I'm not an expert in this area. Like, trial lawyers are not experts in negotiating with, I mean, a few are that I know, but most of us are not. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of lien law, Medicare laws or regulations. I mean, I shouldn't. You shouldn't spend your time. So another piece of advice, actually, which plays well for you guys, is for younger attorneys, don't try to be that person. Don't try to be the lien negotiator. It's going to cost money, but at the end of the day, your client is going to actually pocket more if you outsource that. And so I'm a big believer in that. It's not worth your staff time. It's certainly not worth your time to be spending, negotiating these liens, because we're not experts in it. Give it to the experts. You wouldn't have yourself try to do a TBI analysis. You would outsource that to experts. You get the expert to tell you what it all means. So I'm a big believer in it. We obviously have used you guys for the last year or so, and it's really worked out well. Really, you guys have saved our clients a lot of money.
That's great. I think you can analogize it to, as a lawyer, you could set up a guardianship, you could probate an estate, but there are lawyers that specialize in that, and there's area of expertise in what we do that's pretty, it gets into the weeds with ERISA law or Medicare or Medi-Cal, hospital billing practices. And I mean, it's not simple stuff. So to expect a trial lawyer who's really should be focusing on representing their clients and getting recoveries for the next client instead of trying to tackle all these difficult issues that present themselves once that case is settled. So it's an area that I don't think is getting any less complex. So
No.
it's going to continue to plague firms. And I think, the lawyers that are understanding how complex this is and what kind of exposure it is, particularly when you got like the Department of Justice going after law firms that are not handling conditional payments correctly, or Medicare Advantage plans suing law firms for double the lien amount under the double damages provision of the Secondary Payer Act. I mean, it presents exposure to the law firm, not to mention, ultimately getting the best result for your client is so important. So
Yeah, see, I have no idea what you just said, but this is exactly another reason why I need to we outsource this stuff.
well, well, that's a good stopping point. Good way to end this. So Dan, I really appreciated you coming on. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you go to our website, www.kramerlaw.com, or you feel free to email me at dkramer@kramerlaw.com. That's Kramer. I am always happy. Anytime you need to email me, I'll get you samples, transcripts, PowerPoints, anything you need. I'm always happy to help out. And you can also call us at 310-551-0600. And we're Kramer Trial Law on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. So really appreciate it, Jason. This has been great. Thanks a lot. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, we'll share all of your links and contact information in the show notes when we get it up. And thanks to all the listeners for tuning in to this episode of Trial Lawyer Review.
Thanks for tuning in to Trial Lawyer Review. You can find more at triallawyerreview.com and look for more episodes and more content coming in the future.